Every story we tell is a journey, a thrilling adventure that will keep you hooked from start to finish. Before we begin, let us know where you're watching from. We love seeing our community come together from all around the world. And don't forget, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Tomorrow, we have a special story just for you. Trust us, you won't want to miss it. See you on the next adventure. A broken bottle, a deadly threat. But the guard didn't even flinch. The crisp morning air at Buckingham Palace carried the scent of damp stone and the distant hum of London traffic. Tourists milled about, cameras in hand, snapping photos of the iconic royal guards standing motionless at their posts. Among the crowd, laughter and murmurs of admiration filled the courtyard, until a different kind of presence made itself known. Striding through the sea of visitors, Jake Mad Dog Collins cut a path of unease. At 6 feet 2 inches, 188 centimeters, broad-shouldered and draped in a battered leather jacket, he looked every bit the seasoned street fighter. His knuckles were scarred, his forearms tattooed, faded ink telling stories of prison time and bad decisions. With every step, his heavy boots scuffed against the palace walkway, a direct contrast to the pristine setting around him. His bloodshot eyes scanned the scene, locking onto a royal guard standing at attention, his red tunic immaculate, his ceremonial rifle held with perfect precision. The sight made Jake scoff. Tradition, he muttered under his breath, the word dripping with disdain. What a joke. He took a swig from a bottle tucked inside his jacket, cheap whiskey that still burned from the night before. A pair of elderly tourists stepped aside nervously, clutching their handbags a little tighter as he passed. A young father instinctively positioned himself between Jake and his children, sensing the trouble that radiated from him. Jake spat onto the cobblestones, his expression darkening. He hated men like this, the ones who stood proud, untouched by the kind of life he had lived. A symbol of authority and power, polished and pristine, while people like him were left to rot behind bars or scrape by in the gutters. Just another puppet, he sneered, eyes fixed on the unflinching soldier. Unbeknownst to Jake, an off-duty U.S. Marine sipping coffee near the palace gate had already taken notice. Years of combat experience had taught him to recognize a storm before it hit. He lowered his cup slightly, his sharp eyes narrowing as he watched Jake's slow, deliberate movements. Jake rolled his shoulders, flexed his fingers, then cracked his neck. The tourists around him were just background noise now. Today wasn't about them. Today was about tearing down the illusion of control. And the royal guard standing before him was going to be his target. Jake stalked forward, his boots grinding against the palace walkway as he closed the distance between himself and the unmoving royal guard. The tourists, once excited and carefree, sensed a shift in the air. Conversations died, cameras lowered. The guard stood tall, his red tunic crisp, his black bearskin cap towering above the crowd. He didn't flinch, didn't react, just stared straight ahead, as if Jake wasn't even there. That infuriated him. Jake smirked, circling the guard like a predator sizing up its prey. You just gonna stand there? He taunted, his whiskey-laced breath curling in the cool air. Come on, man. Blink. Flinch. Something. Silence. Jake's jaw clenched. He took a step closer, now toe-to-toe with the soldier. His chest nearly brushed the guards, yet the soldier remained an unshakable wall of discipline. "Look at you," Jake sneered, tilting his head, eyes scanning the medals pinned to the guard's chest. "Bet you think you're better than the rest of us, huh? Think that fancy uniform makes you special?" Nothing. A few tourists backed away, sensing the tension. A young couple whispered urgently to each other, debating whether to get security. Then, without warning, Jake shoved him. It was a hard push, his calloused palms slamming into the soldier's chest, enough force to send most men stumbling backward. But the royal guard didn't move, not an inch. Jake blinked. That wasn't the reaction he expected. The guard's posture remained perfect, unshaken, his rifle still in position, his eyes locked forward like a statue carved from steel. Jake let out a bitter laugh. "You're really just gonna stand there and take it?" A second shove, harder this time. The force behind it could have knocked a lesser man off balance. But not this one. Nothing. The crowd held its breath. The off-duty Marine tensed, his trained eyes picking up something subtle in the guard's stance, a readiness, a calculated awareness just beneath the surface. Jake's smirk twisted into frustration. His fingers curled into fists. "All right," he muttered, voice dropping lower. "Guess we'll have to do this the hard way." And with that, he reached for something that would change everything. Jake's frustration boiled over. His breath came faster now, his muscles tense, his fists twitching with restless energy. The royal guard still hadn't moved, hadn't so much as flickered an eyelid. That made Jake angrier than ever. "All right, soldier boy," he growled under his breath, his eyes scanning the crowd. He needed something, anything, to finally force a reaction. Then he saw it. A glass soda bottle, half full, sitting in a tourist's hand. Perfect. Before anyone could react, Jake lunged. The tourist gasped, stumbling backward as Jake ripped the bottle from their grip. Gasps rippled through the crowd, fear settling in as they realized this wasn't just some drunken rant anymore. Jake grinned darkly, turning the bottle in his hands, feeling its weight. "You know," he said, his voice lowering to a dangerous purr, "you learn a thing or two about making weapons, inside." He took 2 steps back, lifted the bottle, and smashed it against the stone ledge. Crack. The glass shattered instantly, leaving behind a jagged, lethal edge. The sound cut through the courtyard, turning heads, freezing tourists in place. A woman screamed. A father grabbed his daughter and hurried away. Jake now held the broken bottle like a knife, its sharp edges glinting in the pale London sun. His grip was tight, knuckles white. His eyes locked onto the guard, and for the first time, the royal guard's muscles subtly tensed. Jake saw it and grinned. "Oh," he chuckled, stepping closer, twirling the bottle between his fingers. "Now you're paying attention, huh?" The off-duty Marine near the gate had seen enough. His instincts screamed imminent danger, and his hand inched toward his concealed carry, But he hesitated, watching the guard, reading his body language. The tourists were either frozen in shock or scrambling away. A few had their phones out, recording. Jake took one final step. The tip of the broken bottle hovered inches from the guard's throat. The crowd was silent. "You gonna move now?" Jake murmured. Then he started to count. 1, 2. And just as he was about to say 3, the guard finally moved. Jake barely had time to process what happened next. In one explosive motion, the royal guard struck like lightning. Before Jake could even say 3, the guard's white-gloved hand snapped up, his movements precise, practiced, deadly. The sharp crack of impact echoed through the courtyard as the guard's arm deflected Jake's wrist with surgical accuracy, sending a jolt of pain through his fingers. The broken bottle flew from his grip, shattering harmlessly against the stone walkway. Jake staggered back, his mind reeling. What the? The royal guard was already moving. With an efficiency honed through years of military training, the guard closed the distance, his left hand seizing Jake's arm, his right applying a pressure hold so precise that Jake's knees buckled instantly. The thug hit the ground hard, his body collapsing beneath the weight of the maneuver. Pain shot through his wrist and shoulder, his instincts screaming at him to fight back, but he couldn't. The crowd gasped in shock, eyes wide as the once immovable guard transformed from silent sentinel to unstoppable force. Jake struggled, but the more he resisted, the tighter the hold became, twisting his arm into a position that left him completely immobilized. The off-duty Marine at the gate smirked, shaking his head. "Textbook," he muttered under his breath. Tourists stood frozen, phones recording, their expressions shifting from fear to awe as they realized. This was never just a show. The royal guard wasn't some ceremonial prop. He was a soldier. A warrior. A man trained to neutralize threats in seconds. Jake gritted his teeth, his face twisting in rage and humiliation. "Let go," he growled, thrashing against the hold. The royal guard finally spoke, his voice calm, authoritative, unwavering. "Stand down." Jake froze. The power in those 2 words was undeniable. The crowd erupted in whispers, some still in shock, others cheering in admiration. In less than 5 seconds, the tables had completely turned. Jake had gone from predator to prey. And there was nothing he could do about it. Jake panted heavily, his body pinned to the cold stone ground, his arm locked at an excruciating angle. Every time he tried to shift, the guard adjusted, tightening the hold just enough to remind him who was in control. The once rowdy thug was now nothing more than a prisoner of his own arrogance. A hush had fallen over the crowd. Stunned tourists watched in awe, their cameras still rolling. The moment they had all thought would end in tragedy had instead turned into a lesson in discipline and power. The off-duty Marine stood at the edge of the scene, arms crossed, nodding approvingly. He had seen this kind of precise takedown before, but never in a setting like this. "Man picked the wrong soldier," he muttered under his breath. Buckingham Palace security rushed onto the scene, their radios crackling with urgent chatter. Two officers moved in quickly, one kneeling beside Jake, securing his hands behind his back with practiced efficiency. Assaulting a Queen's Guard with a deadly weapon, one officer said coldly as he snapped the handcuffs into place. "You just earned yourself some serious time, mate." Jake's breath came in ragged gasps, his earlier bravado completely shattered. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He had wanted to humiliate the guard, to break his discipline, to prove that these men were nothing more than decorations in red coats. Instead, he was the one on the ground. Defeated. Helpless. The Royal Guard released his hold, stepping back into position with effortless precision. His uniform still immaculate, his posture unshaken. It was as if nothing had ever happened. The war veteran in the crowd, the one who had recognized the danger before anyone else, stepped forward. His weathered face held a quiet respect as he looked at the guard. "Damn fine work, son," he murmured, giving the smallest nod. The guard said nothing. He didn't need to. The tourists who had once looked at him as a simple palace attraction now saw him differently. Not as a prop for selfies. Not as a man in a fancy uniform. But as what he truly was. A soldier. A protector. A warrior who didn't need to prove his strength, because he already knew it. What do you think about this intense encounter? If you were in the Royal Guard's position, how would you have handled the situation? Do you think Jake ever stood a chance, or was he doomed from the moment he tried to provoke a true soldier? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Also, have you ever witnessed something like this in real life? Maybe a moment where discipline and training completely changed the outcome of a dangerous situation? Share your experiences below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible stories of courage, discipline, and unexpected moments that prove why some traditions should never be underestimated.